Welcome to Within the Frame, where we bring the most pressing issues across the globe into focus. I'm Kim Mok-yeon. South Korea has laid out a fresh direction for its North Korea policy under the Lee Jae Myung administration. The new framework, titled Policy for Peaceful Coexistence on the Korean Peninsula, replaces the term denuclearization with a nuclear-free Korean Peninsula and shifts the focus towards long-term peace and coexistence. It's a notable adjustment in tone, especially as Pyongyang prepares for its 9th Party Congress. With regional dynamics in flux and talks at a standstill, this policy raises key questions about Seoul's next steps and how this new language might be interpreted both home and by North Korea. For a deeper discussion on this, we are joined in the studio by Go Myung-hyun, Senior Research Fellow at the Institute for National Security Strategy. A big welcome, Dr. Go.
It's good to see you.
And also joining us online is Ambassador Joseph Detrani, former Special Envoy of the U.S. for the Sixth Party talks. Good to see you.
Nice seeing you.
So let's begin a discussion with the latest policy from Seoul on North Korea. So instead of using the term denuclearization, it kind of focused on the term nuclear-free Korean Peninsula and puts peaceful coexistence at the core. I wonder, how did you see the overall policy direction?
So it was interesting because the new announcement in terms of a new policy of the Lee Jae Myung administration had essentially been previewed last year when President Lee, in his speech in the United Nations, announced the new initiative towards North Korea called the END initiative, or END. So here, END stands for exchange, normalization, and denuclearization. And these are the three steps, the sequential steps that South Korea would like to take towards North Korea. So here you can see that denuclearization comes at the very end of the process. So clearly, denuclearization was put in the back burner, so no longer a priority for South Korea's North Korea policy. So this was, in fact, very much paralleled U.S. administration's policy towards North Korea. President Trump, in fact, mentioned several times that denuclearization is less of a priority for the U.S. administration, even though in the case of the United States, that was contradicted by the State Department's declaration that denuclearization was still the main objective for the United States when it comes to North Korea. But nonetheless, clearly there's a drive here towards putting denuclearization in the back burner. So clearly what's being highlighted is one of engagement, starting dialogue with North Korea. And I think this is the least the South Korea and the United States can do at the moment, given the fact that North Korea is not really responding to all these offers and entreaties from Seoul and Washington. And it looks like North Korea doesn't have the need to do so, especially because it's so invested in its relationship with Moscow.
Right. So it does seem like a shift towards a more pragmatic move, given the diplomatic deadlock with North Korea. But within North Korea, Kim Jong-un, we hear that he continues to make field visits, most recently highlighting the completion of the Siniju Greenhouse Farm, a very visible livelihood project. Ambassador Detrani, what do you make of this move? Do you think it's aimed at tightening internal unity and reinforcing regime legitimacy, or externally, is he trying to project that progress is still possible even under sanctions?
Well, no, I think he's projecting what the people want to hear in North Korea, that he cares about the people, that he's looking at their well-being, whether the work he's doing now on healthcare issues, but looking at the livelihood of people, what they could purchase. I mean, inflation has been unbelievably bad for North Korea. I mean, you're talking about the price of rice. It's gone from 4,000 won per kilo to over 15,000 won per kilo. So it's been difficult for the people. But I think what he's doing now is he's looking at decentralizing their economy. He's looking at making it more of a market-type economy. He's looking at, and in fact, this is what China did in the late 70s with Deng Xiaoping in the early and the 1980s, where they moved from a centralized system of governance, certainly economic governance, to a more decentralized system where the market plays a bigger role. And I think he's looking at productivity. He's looking at increasing exports. The economy is not doing very well when you talk about their trade with, let's say, China. I mean, China has a significant balance of trade in their favor. So he's got to change his equation. And I think his message to the Korean people is, I care about your well-being, and I'm going to be working on this.
So he's showing a message that he's still concerned about the situation there. Now, in relation to that, there is also growing analysis that North Korea now sees the past 5 years as the economic self-reliance being completed. So do you think that means that their economic structure really improved, and do you think they're less dependent on the outside of the world?
Well, I think North Korea always claims that it's less dependent on the outside world, but we know in truth that's exactly the opposite. And we also know that in the past 5 years, North Korea was trying to implement a new economic policy. In fact, it's less about relying less on the outside world, it's more about relying less on the market system. So in that sense, I think we are very looking forward to see what the North Koreans are going to announce in terms of economic outcomes. But then I'm not really holding my breath in terms of whether North Korea is going to announce a successful economic policy outcome in this case, because any deviation away from the market necessarily leads to economic decline. So the question is whether North Korea has been able to make that up with something else. So it looks like North Korea's economy by objective measures has grown in the past 5 years. There's a recent announcement by the Bank of Korea statistic that shows that North Korea might have grown by 10%, not every year, but in 5 years span. So which is quite substantial, meaning that North Korean economy didn't decline that much. But then we have to look into the details of this economic development, whether North Korea's people living standards has gone up, or whether it's a measure of the overall shift of production away from the consumers to, say, the defense industrial base or major public construction projects and so forth, which looks grandiose. In fact, it increases the economic output of the country, but not in the benefit of the people. So that remains to be seen. And it looks like North Korea has reverted back to the old habit of showcasing some representative projects, such as what Ambassador Chani just mentioned about this greenhouse in Siniju. It looks fancy, it looks very telegenic, but then it doesn't mean that we see greenhouses dotted around the country. So all these showcase projects, in fact, it's more about propaganda. So it remains to be seen whether North Korea has been able to achieve genuine economic progress in the past 5 years.
So we'll have to wait and see on that. But let's go back to deterrence and defense. North Korea said that it will announce plans to enhance its nuclear deterrence capabilities at the upcoming Party Congress. And some even expect a so-called North Korean version of the CNI, or the conventional nuclear integration, to be unveiled. Ambassador, what kind of content do you think we could expect from that? And how significant would it be if Pyongyang actually announces integration between its nuclear and conventional forces?
No, I think it's very significant. And I think this is, it's likely this will be announced at the Ninth Party Congress this month. And it is very, as I said, very, very significant. Kim Jong-un is with the Hwasong 20, he'll be displaying that again with the nuclear-powered submarine, with his work with the Russian Federation, and the likely assistance he's getting from Russia to improve, if you will, his nuclear, I believe, his nuclear systems, but also his ballistic missile system. So I think the integration of nuclear with the conventional weapons, I think that is a very significant, that speaks very loud to our need, if you will, the Republic of Korea's need with the United States to work on the deterrence and to make it very clear to Kim Jong-un that that the Republic of Korea and the United States are prepared with our, if you will, with our nuclear umbrella, the extended nuclear deterrence commitments we have. We should emphasize that, but also emphasize that we are one, we are integrated, and the United States is therefore that 28,500 troops in South Korea is a tripwire. It's making it very clear to Kim Jong-un, as it was made clear to his father and grandfather, that the United States, as we saw in the Korean War, is there. We're allies. We're close allies. And any move against the Republic of Korea would involve the United States. And we're talking about a nuclear umbrella that is very potent. So yeah, I think this is where Kim Jong-un is going, and I think he's on a roll with his nuclear and missile programs. He feels very good about those programs. But as I mentioned a few minutes ago, he's going to be also focusing on what he's giving to the people, because I think he's got to make it clear he cares about the people, especially when they're seeing casualties coming out of North Korea's assistance to the Russian Federation for their war of aggression in Ukraine.
Right. So you said we're going to be expecting that in a couple of days in the Congress. It will be definitely a big step in posture from North Korea. But if North Korea does actually announce that kind of big announcement, the North Korean style of CNI, South Korea, many people believe that South Korea will really have to recalibrate its diplomatic and national security strategy depending on that. What kind of changes do you think would be necessary, Dr. Go?
In fact, we've been preparing for the CNI for a while. I mean, in fact, the CNI term came first from the Seoul and Washington, part of the nuclear consultative group. So we have experienced the growing nuclear threat from the north. And so there a couple of years ago, there's all this controversy around whether the South Korea and the United States, the combined forces of the two militaries, were in fact prepared to rise up to the challenge of North Korea's nuclear weapons. And the solution was CNI, conventional nuclear integration for the South Korea and the United States militaries. So what North Koreans are saying now is that North Korea, in fact, their doctrine, nuclear doctrine was going between 0 to infinite, meaning like using nuclear weapons from the get-go, which is very dangerous, obviously, because that meant that nuclear exchange could take place with just a very minor provocation or conflict between the two Koreas. So what the North Koreans are saying is that they, with the help, assistance from Russia probably, they've been able to strengthen their conventional capability, and now they can mimic the CNI capability that the combined forces of South Korea and the United States possess right now. So in that sense, it's a demonstration of our strengths and sophistication on the part of North Korea. So the South Korea and the United States, in fact, have to prepare for that by, as Ambassador Trani has mentioned, enhancing deterrence. And that sounds more like a cliche because we mention that every time we discuss about North Korea's nuclear threat. But we have to mention this again because this is coming in the light of the recently published National Defense Strategy. There, the term extended deterrence or nuclear umbrella for South Korea, not just for South Korea, but any ally of the United States, is gone. It has disappeared. So that's a source of concern for many allies, not just in South Korea, but elsewhere as well. So in a time like this, when it's unclear whether the United States is willing to reaffirm their its commitment to defend its allies around the world with its nuclear arsenal, I think it's important to reaffirm this, that the nuclear umbrella for South Korea is very much alive. And for that reason, I think it would be really great if Washington could mention this again, that South Korea is under the U.S. Nuclear umbrella.
Right, definitely. A very good time to reaffirm our solid alliance and nuclear umbrella as well. Now, there's also talk that the regime may officially define inter-Korean relations as those of two hostile states in its revised party charter. Ambassador, how likely do you think this is to actually be adopted? And if it is, what kind of ripple effects could we see?
Well, I think it's likely that Kim Jong-un and the Ninth Party Congress will make statements along those lines, and it will probably even be in their constitution. I mean, they've made it clear that that South Korea and the United States are enemies. And we need to move away from that. And this is what Dr. Go was talking about with your first question, with Lee Jae Myung and the government of South Korea saying we want coexistence. We're putting denuclearization at the end of the equation here. We want to move towards a peaceful coexistence, but let's have a dialogue. Let's move together. And you know, if Kim Jong-un is serious about improving the livelihood for the people of North Korea, integrating and working closely with the Republic of Korea is an imperative. It's something he needs to do. And that, to include the United States, I might add. And that would be the opening up that would be very necessary. Some of the critics say that will put him at risk. He may feel vulnerable. I don't buy into that. I think there's that movement. So I think it's likely he'll memorialize the South Korea and the United States as the enemies. But I think we and President Lee Jae Myung is moving in that direction. Move away from that and talk about coexistence. And President Donald Trump has reached out, and I think he will continue to reach out to engage Kim Jong-un, to say, let's sit down, let's talk about it. And again, let's put denuclearization at the end of this equation. But it's still there. Denuclearization is still there.
So locking that into the charter would likely make future dialogue even tougher, but Seoul and Washington, I guess, will have to continue knocking the door for dialogue. But beyond that, Ambassador, what other areas of this party Congress do you think are worth watching forward to?
Well, I think as was mentioned by Dr. Go, I think the exponential increase of their nuclear programs, he's going to highlight that. What North Korea has done with their nuclear programs, what they've done with ballistic missiles, and they'll be focusing on the conventional capabilities also, and what they've done. There's no question about that. But I think he's also going to be focusing on, and I think we'll see this in very stark terms, talking about the livelihood of the people of North Korea, the initiatives he is taking, and he will take to improve the livelihood of the people of North Korea. And I think he'll speak about his relationship with the Russian Federation. And that's a very close relationship. I think with the People's Republic of China, there's no question that North Korea relies heavily on China for its economic existence almost. But I think he wants to diversify that. And he may say something about China and the good relationship and the allied relationship. But I think his focus will be on the livelihood of the people, the exponential increase in nuclear and ballistic missiles, but also his relationship with the Russian Federation.
Right. We'll definitely be looking forward to that. But let's shift gears a little bit. North Korea, it's planning to celebrations ahead of the late Kim Jong-il's birthday. But noticeably, it's been refraining from calling it the Gwangmyeong-seong Day as it did in the past. But some say it may be due to efforts to elevate Kim Jong-un's cult of personality. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, that's entirely possible. I think there are reports coming out, or speculation more likely, that for the first time in a long time, that Kim Jong-un, North Korea is going to have a president. Again, not a figure of a more like a figurehead, but then an actual chairman kind of position. So this is the last time that this happened was with Kim Il-sung. So if it is true, then Kim Jong-un will be using the platform of Ninth Party Congress to consecrate himself as the head of state as well as the maximum source of power in the country. So if that's the case, then anyone, especially his father, who apparently wasn't that popular among the people of North Korea, shouldn't be like really outshining him. So I think that it's probably one of the reasons why the mentioning of Gwangmyeong-seong Day is being deleted from it's not being mentioned in the North Korean media right now. But nonetheless, I think overall it's about Kim Jong-un is feeling confident. I think he, despite what's happening in the economic domain, which I believe is not that great, I think he feels very confident about the fact that North Korea has been recognized as an important power, not a major power, but important power, standing shoulder to shoulder next to Chinese President Xi Jinping, as well as the Russian President Vladimir Putin. So all these occurrences and events that from North Korea's heightened status in the world probably has given him confidence to elevate himself to that position which only the founder of North Korea had held before.
So it's part of efforts to elevate his role and his position in the regime. Now, in just a couple of months, once North Korea wraps up this internal events in February, the annual South Korea-U.S. joint military exercises are set to begin. But according to the National Defense Strategy, there's even talk that the role of these exercises and of U.S. forces Korea itself may shift from mainly deterring North Korea to focusing more on countering China. Ambassador, could we see that shift begin to take shape in this year's March drills?
No, I just don't believe that's going to be the case. I could be wrong, obviously. But I think the focus is our forces in South Korea and these joint military exercises are focused on a possible invasion from North Korea. So the focus will be on North Korea, deterring that, showing that we are capable, we are joint command. We will very starkly make it very clear to Kim Jong-un and to North Korea that that's what the focus is. Our troops there are to deter, hopefully deter, indeed, and that has been the case, and that will be the case, hopefully, deter North Korea, and that's the focus. Now, whether those troops, if there is conflict in the Indo-Pacific region, and it touches the Taiwan Straits, would those U.S. troops in South Korea, those 28,500 troops in South Korea, would they be available for that? That's something that's being discussed between the Republic of Korea and the United States. That's something to be worked on. But I think the joint exercises, military exercises, are focused on a potential, hopefully never happen, but a potential threat, invasion from North Korea.
All right. Thank you so much for your insights on that, Ambassador Detrani. We really appreciate it. And also, we'll have to leave our discussion right here. Many thanks to your insights, Dr. Go.
My pleasure.
And again, Ambassador Detrani, we appreciate it again. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And that'll be all from us on Within the Frame. Be sure to tune in again next time as we continue to explore the stories that matter. Until then, stay informed and engaged.